Thank you so much for attending today. This is the Senior Housing Roundtable here in Littleton. And first, I would just like to make sure that everybody knows that there are snacks in the back. Of course, the most important thing before you get started is knowing where the food is, right? So please help yourselves. And then also, if you find that you are in need of any kind of writing utensil or you need any paper to write on for notes, there's some in the back as well. And so just wanted to inform everyone that this meeting is being videotaped by LCTV, so it will be available to the public. And let me go ahead and get started. We are here today because our wonderful resident, Kim Albertelli, and realtor, had an idea because she had been receiving so many questions from our seniors about what King Street Common was going to look like, what kind of housing was going to be there, and what are the options for being able to downsize. And I'm sorry if I have my back turned and just trying to figure out this concept that we came up with about the round table. So our agenda for today, we have somebody who's passing out the handouts. First, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the important information about Littleton, such as what are the current options, what does affordability mean, what does the current real estate market look like, and then we'll talk about the new housing options at King Street Common. And then, of course, the best part is going to be we get to hear from you all as to what you would like to have built here in Littleton. As far as introductions go, I'm Anna Houston. I'm the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust here in Littleton. We have Kim Albertelli with the Find Your Village team with Keller Williams, Realty, Boston Northwest. We have two guest speakers as well, Maritza Crossan, who is the Director of Strategic Initiatives with CHAPA. CHAPA is a very well-known statewide organization that helps a lot with housing issues. And CHAPA stands for Citizens Housing and Planning Association. And we have Rick Freiberg, who is the Regional Director of Strategic Planning of the Strategic Planning Division for the Engineering Corp or Tech, representing Lipoli Companies here today. And Lipoli Companies is the developer who is creating King Street Common. I'd like to thank all of our volunteers who came early to help set up chairs, folks from COA like Susan and Marge and Anita and Mark and so many others. And Joe Knox, yes. So thank you to everyone who came early, and also to Liz Treziak for helping to be able to get the word out in terms of the promotion into the broadcaster. All right. So, referring to your handout, let's go ahead and get started. On page 2, here's a couple of words that you might hear throughout this event. One is housing that is affordable, okay? What's important about this is what the goal is for every single person who lives in an apartment or a condominium or a house. Housing that is affordable means that the household spends around 30% or less of their income towards housing costs. That is a goal. That is what we want. Clearly, that doesn't happen, especially in today's environment. So that's why we have something that is called affordable housing. Sometimes it's even called Big A affordable. So affordable housing is income-restricted housing, and that is that there is a cap on the amount of money that a family can make below a certain amount in order to qualify and live there. Then the term market rate housing means whether you're a homeowner or you're renting, that is housing that is not restricted based on income. All right? So the next page is going to be our current housing options in Littleton. And this falls into 2 buckets right now. Later I'll talk about how we're going to have 3. So the 2 buckets right now are affordable housing. So this is the truly affordable housing that a household needs to be able to qualify for. In Littleton, we have 454 affordable units. This includes 273 that are for rent, 23 that are ownership, and a mix of 158. The reason why we're here today, in part, is because while we have 454 affordable units, we still need many more. all right? And we have a lengthy wait list to be able to get into those. In terms of the other bucket, which is the market rate units, we have both apartments and homes for rental, not very many of them, and also homes that can be owned. So that's what we have in terms of our two buckets right now. The next page, page 4, because we talk about, oh my goodness, the pricing of homes has gone up significantly. Well, this chart, which was created by our town assessor and was presented at the select board on November 6th, just last week, this provides a very good view of how the market price has grown. The average value of a single-family home in Littleton, if you take a look at this chart, was very steady between 2010 and 2015. And then in 2016, it started to spike up a little bit, and then it just kept growing. So in 2016, the average value for a single-family home in Littleton was $400,000, and now, today, it's up to $672,000. So it's not your imagination. Those prices really have gone up. So that's just to kind of lay the groundwork, because I know oftentimes there are some basic questions that everyone has before we can even get started. And so I wanted to make sure everybody knew about that. Next, I'd like to ask Maritza to please talk about affordability and what it takes to be eligible. And also, what does that lottery process look like for folks who might want to try to get into an affordable unit?
Sure.
Thank you.
Is this working? Should I just hold it a little? This is better? Okay, great. Thank you everyone for having me join you this afternoon, and happy to talk about this. So it sounds like today's conversation is really figuring out what you want and need in the community, and as it relates to affordable housing, Anna's definition was absolutely perfect in that the goal is that no one is spending more than 30% of their income on their housing carrying costs. So that's your mortgage if you're a homeowner, your taxes, your insurance, your condo fees, and then if you're renting, it would just be a straight rent calculation. So affordable housing, the actual numbers vary based on community, and you'll see on that first page what the income limits would be for your community as of this year. These do go up every single year. There has been very few years where they go down slightly, but even in the height of the pandemic, these numbers increase because it's based on a national average, and then it's based on, as you can see, your community uses the Boston area numbers, and things are growing and growing and growing. That means that it allows more people to be eligible, but that also affects the price as well. So this is based on household size. As you can see, a one-person household to be eligible for a standard 40B is what we would most likely see, affordable rental or homeownership. It would use the same income limits. You would have to have about $83,000 to be eligible. And next year, given that this project isn't developed yet, that number will be slightly higher. And again, it goes by household size. The price also uses these numbers. So the price right now for a standard 2 to 3 bedroom affordable property can be anywhere from about $200,000 to $300,000. So you can see it's more than half the price of what your median home prices are in this community right now. So it's a significant difference. And the way that the process works is, if this is what the community decides upon, if there is a 40B-like development there, the total number of units, 25% of those will be set for households at these income limits at those prices. The prices also take into consideration not just the income limits, but the current interest rates if it's homeownership. And as you probably know right now, those are very high. If the interest rates are high, that just makes the price a little bit lower because your costs of carrying that home are more expensive. So it's all to work in the benefit in that you're not spending more than 30% of these numbers here. I should also mention, if it's a homeownership development, your condo fees are also typically lower. There are some developments that decide to have them all the same. Most of the time I see that the affordable properties pay a different rate than the market rate units in terms of condo fees. So there's savings there, as well as on your tax rate. You would save money as well. You'd pay what your home is worth, which would be that $200,000 to $300,000 value. It's not been decided if it's rental or home ownership, correct?
So the development that Rick is going to talk about, King Street Common, at this time, based off of the planning board's decision, 10% of the units there are going to be affordable.
Rental, okay.
And all rental, yes.
Okay. I'll just give you briefly the information for asset limits. Typically, they do not pertain to rental units. That all depends on how the town decides on how that's structured, but we don't see that very often. If there were homeownership developments that were age restricted, you could have up to $275,000 in assets, which really allows for people to sell their home that they've lived in for a very long time, maybe what you've raised your family in, and still gain that equity without pricing you out of being eligible for the affordable homes. Getting into the next page regarding, I know there was some questions regarding local preference, and this is just really how the process would work if there are 10% of the units are affordable. There would be a lottery process to apply for when these initially become available, and the town can decide and apply for something called local preference, which means there's a certain percentage of those homes set aside for members of the community, or if you work in the community, or if you have children that attend school in the community but you live in another community. All those categories all the way on the right-hand side of the sheet are what are allowable categories for what's called local preference. And this just means that there is a separate pool for those applicants that essentially gets set aside first. So the most common number you will see is 70%. That's also the highest number that you can have for local preference. We are seeing more commonly now those numbers go down to allow communities to have more welcome communities, so other people outside of the community have the opportunity to live there. But that's all based on the town's decision as well as the state. It's something that you have to prove and apply for. So it was mentioned earlier that you have about 400 affordable units, but there's a wait list. That is a reason to apply for the local preference, because you're saying we have currently not enough units in our community for the people that want to live here. And so that's what the town would use as a reasoning to apply for whatever percentage of local preference. So if the number is 70%, then there would be that separate pool, and local residents would go, or employees would go into that pool, and it would be drawn down, and 70% of the homes would be set aside. And then if you were in that pool but didn't get selected, then you could go into the open pool with everyone else, and then you would be selected for those remaining whatever the number is of units. And then everyone else is sort of on a wait list. So if someone sees the home because they were first on the list but they decided, I don't really want it, you just move down the list in that way. And the same way for wait lists. But this is for the initial development process and when people are initially leasing up. Afterwards, there would typically just be a wait list maintained by the property manager or whomever is on site. So that was a lot. We're going to do questions at the end, right? Okay.
Yes. Well, actually, if there are, right now, if there are questions related to affordability, what the process for the lottery is, anything like that, let's go ahead and take those questions now. Yes?
Why only 10%?
So,
Would you repeat the question, please?
yes, so the question is why only 10%, and I'm assuming that you're referencing the King Street Common development. So the planning board took this into account when the developer came to the planning board for its special permit. And so we went through and we identified with the developer what is going to be built there in terms of senior housing, and being able to identify the price ranges, which is something that we're going to be talking about, because so many more of the units are going to be middle market, and we'll address that in just a little bit, that we felt that 10% was going to be appropriate for everything else that was going to be provided in this particular development. Obviously, we would love it if it was 50%, but somehow I don't think that they would have approved that. Yes.
It's my understanding that with the 40B development, the affordable units have to be 20%. Why is it only 10?
So in this particular case, the King Street Common development was not a 40B.
A friendly 40B?
No.
No?
Is it inclusionary?
Inclusionary zoning,
Inclusionary
yes.
zoning bylaw, yeah.
Yes.
You would still follow, for these purposes, the same income limits, but the percentage is different, yes.
Yes. Let's see.
How many of the 10% are going to be set aside for seniors?
40 of the units.
40 of the units.
Yes. Yes, sir?
If you sold your home in Littleton to try to find some affordable housing somewhere, can you possibly come away with liquid assets that are less than 275,000?
Well, for this property, it's a rental development, and so do you know if there's asset limits that are going to be into place? Typically the rental
I'm looking
development.
at this asset limits here.
Yeah, so that's for home ownership.
So if I wanted to get another home, and sell my home, which is gonna sell for about 800,000, I'm out of luck.
Yeah, then you wouldn't qualify
I need to go over
based on this.
overseas or something to find a house.
We are advocating for those numbers to be increased because they have been in place for a very long time. The same with the $75,000. If it's not age restricted, that's still pretty low. And you'd be penalized if you've been saving up and have 80. And then that means you can't buy an affordable, but you also can certainly not afford a market rate home. So that's something that our organization is actively working on increasing to reflect what's happening in the market right now.
This 10% we're talking about, is that for Littleton residents only, or is it open to the state?
So, you want me to?
You can address that.
Hi, good afternoon. What we've committed to do through the planning board is to the maximum extent allowed by law, give preference to Littleton residents. So it sounds like a path for that would be this.
70%.
Yes, 70% would be the highest. So if there's 40 units set aside for seniors, let's just say, about 30 of those could be set aside for Littleton seniors.
And who did the others go to?
I would imagine it's an open pool, so whomever, it could be also Littleton residents, but it also could not be.
Okay.
Is there any preference given to veterans?
There is not in the affordable housing program, unfortunately.
When we talk about Littleton seniors, is that 62 plus? Is that the age or?
So the restriction is dependent on what the planning board, sometimes it's 55, sometimes it's 62. I'm not sure on this, if it's been decided yet.
We didn't set an age limit on it yet. But I think the goal, I think, would be to come away from the roundtable like this and also continue to working together in the future to find out what that market is for the age that really needs the housing. If the market skews to the older side and we wanted to make sure that those were the first ones taken care of, we might set a higher age limit on it. But if we found out that the demographic looking for housing, it was really important to include, let's say, as young as 55, then I think we'd work together and identify what that appropriate age is. We want these units to be full. We want as many people to take advantage of them as possible, so I think we want to work together to find out what those appropriate restrictions would be. It doesn't do us any good to have affordable units that are empty, right,
Okay.
if we're too restrictive on it.
And the price of the rentals, those are determined by Middlesex County?
Yes, it's determined by income limits, as well as how many utilities are covered by the property manager versus how many utilities the tenant would be paying. And again, because they're not in development yet, that wouldn't be something that I would imagine is decided for another year or two.
Yeah, I have rough numbers, but
Oh, okay.
these are not set in stone because even the units themselves haven't been designed. So it's a great time to be talking because it's pre-design. So what we talk about today can help influence the design. We can change things to accommodate what we all decide are important to do. But round numbers, we think that the market rate type units are going to be in the neighborhood of around 3,000. In all these, there's going to be variation for size of the unit, location of the unit, the view, how close it is to amenities, etc. But using round numbers, about 3,000 for the market rate ones. The 80% AMI units, which is in this case 38 units, those would be in the neighborhood of about $2,000 a month. And then the ones that we're referring to as the 40 discounted senior units that we're talking about, those are going to fall in the range of 30 to 60% AMI. And those are probably going to end up, because this is a few years out, we're projecting a little bit, but in the neighborhood of like 800 to 1,200 a month.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, we're trying hard.
Yeah, that's great.
I'd like to understand the 275 number. I understand you say that might change, but let's use 275 for a second. Is that before or after I've done my affordable housing transaction?
Before. It's whatever you're using. Most people would purchase the new affordable home in cash. So it's what your assets are as you are because usually they're under $200,000. So if you wanted to take the 275, if that's what it was, and you would buy the home in cash, and then your carrying costs would just be taxes and insurance, condo fees and such. But it does include whatever you're planning to use to purchase the new property.
So that somebody in that situation is left with $75,000 to live on for the rest of their life.
For your assets, yes, not your income.
If you have income.
Well, you don't have to purchase it in cash. You could also take out a mortgage as well. I'm just saying that's an option that some people choose, but you don't have to do that.
I see. Okay.
All right. Any other questions on the affordability lottery component? One of the things that I think will be helpful for folks to take into account is everyone's housing situation is different. Everyone's personal finances are very different. And one of the future activities that we could consider is whether or not there is a need for some of that one-on-one consultation, if you will. And perhaps that's something we could discuss with the Department of Elder and Human Services here in Littleton, whether or not that's something they would like to be able to participate in, or if there's some other organization that would like to be able to engage to help folks kind of walk through that process. So I just wanted to put that out there as a potential idea. So now to talk a little bit about the current real estate market and what to expect in the market, Kim Elper-Tellery. You can just also just flip it up.
There you go. We'll try this. I'm too much of a pacer to sit and chat. So, we have a few friends that do real estate here, so please speak up and let us know. But every time Lisa's on my team, go and speak with seniors, the biggest question is, well, I know I can sell mine, but where do I go? And so that's why we're here, because we heard that there's a lot of rentals coming, and now we're trying to figure out, could some of these be condos? Could some of these continue to grow your wealth and be something that you build on rather than just rent away? So that's why we're here, is to figure that out today. We don't know cost because we don't know what we're building yet. That's why we're here. So for example, if somebody said, hey, I can sell my house for $800, but I don't know where to go, what are you looking for? That's what we're trying to figure out. Are you looking for a 2-bedroom, a 1-bedroom, a studio, a 3-bedroom? Do you want to simplify but not downsize? Then the motion of the cost of that may not be realistic, and that's what we're here to also find out. Does that make sense? So if somebody's dreaming of a beautiful 2-bedroom condo for $300 here in town, I'm really sorry. That is not going to be built. I'm just guessing with my new friend here. So, that's it. So we pulled a lot of charts here. So, Anna went over the numbers of what's happening. We can all see that just since COVID, we've gone up 28 and 30%. So that's really good news for all of you when you go to sell. With one of our capable friends here, we can all really maximize your potential. Now we're here today to find out what it is that you're looking for and how simplified do you want to be. Someone mentioned earlier, my new friend, said she wants a condo that's a single family like Bluebird. Those went very quickly. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a bigger community living more closely together. So how many, for example, will be really thinking, I don't want more than 500 square feet. I couldn't live in under 3,000 square feet. I don't know where you are in that, and that's why we're here, to ask all of these questions so that what we build is what you'll come to. Does that make sense? Yeah. So when we chat with our seniors and our young people, I have 3 adults at home that can't find a place to live to buy because that doesn't work. And we have a lot of great lenders that can help you do a lot of these math problems and figure out, instead of buying cash, what would that look like? And we have to pay attention to things like taxes and insurance and all of those things, which is going to only go up, we know that. So that's what we're trying to figure out, is if you were to leave, what would you leave for? What would that look like? What do you want us to build? And really, we just need to know that. And then we have to get it to be affordable for all of us.
So I would like to add that King Street Common has its special permit to build what it is planning, and that is rental units at this time, and Rick can talk about that more in a moment. But I would also like to say that the Affordable Housing Trust, its role is to identify where and how many, how can it be done, to be able to create more affordable housing in Littleton. And we have still, opportunities to be able to do all that. So just keep that in mind, that this development isn't the only one, but it is definitely the big one that is going to make change here in Littleton. And so before we move on, does anyone have any questions of Kim regarding the real estate market, general questions about the real estate market?
Do you have any idea where those condos would be built? Would they be close to center of town or outside?
So
of
that's
town?
what we're talking about today is the IBM campus. So that would be there. And there is a shuttle that would go to the train station, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the plan. And so you'd have access to get into the city, or you could take the bus that will shuttle you to Market Basket, for example, to the point. So, yeah, and you'd walk across the street to CVS, and we're hoping to also build some shops there. So we're trying to figure all of that out. It doesn't make sense to build what we think makes sense if nobody wants it, right? We don't want empty buildings, right?
So, any other questions? Yes.
Is this going to be just all condos?
The question is this going to be all condos? So, as of right now, the way the planning board decision sits is that right now this is planned to be at King Street Common, all apartment rental units. Okay? But I hear from Rick that, he wants to hear what everyone has to say. Yes. Yes, sir.
Yes, Rick, you mentioned market rate units would be maybe in the vicinity of 3,000 a month, and then something at 2,000 a month. I didn't capture that. What was it?
Yeah, sure.
Well, real quick, in terms of answering that question, let's do it this way. So if everyone wants to turn to page 10 in the packet.
Could you repeat the question, please?
So Mr. Curran was asking about pricing based off of the terms that were used by Rick. And so if everyone turns to page 10,
Yeah,
this lays out
Yeah.
the three different buckets and what is currently planned in terms of the number of units. And if Rick could
yeah.
talk about, or
Rephrase it, yeah.
rephrase that,
Sure.
yes, that would be great.
So if you're looking at page 10, on the very left side of that bar graph at the top, you see affordable housing units, 78 units. And then below that, there's the four bullets. So the first bullet, in these four bullets, they break down, well, okay, there's 78 affordable units, but they're not all the same. They're different also. They're differentiated. 40 out of those 78 units are going to be set aside for seniors. And what we tried to do, because we understood it was a need in the town, when we first started talking to the town about 2 years ago, was to create those at the most affordable rate that we could. So we're proposing to have those at the 30 to 60% AMI range. AMI is area median income. Like was mentioned before, I think that's depending on whether you're one person or two people, but ballpark around $90,000, I think, for the county. And that's how these rents get set. They get set off the median income. So those 40 units, we're projecting a little bit, but we think that those are going to end up renting in the vicinity of $800 to $1,200 per month for that top category there. The next bullet down is actually I'm just going to group these two together. Actually, all three of these I'm just going to group them together because the following three bullets are all in what we would call 80% AMI, and that's your traditional use when you hear the word affordable unit. That's what's in these 40.
That's the number on the
Yes,
slide.
that's right. So those numbers there, that's your 80% AMI. Those are the ones that are going to be in the vicinity of 2,000 a month, and there's going to be variation depending on unit size and number of bedrooms, et cetera. But that's the breakdown in terms of how many 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms of those remaining 38 units that they'll be there.
Excuse me, you mentioned condo fees. Is that going to be?
So we're proposing at this point it's all rental. So no condo fees in the rentals.
On the buyers.
If we were going to sell condos, then there would probably be association fees associated with that. But right now we're not proposing to sell any condos.
When you're saying those prices instead of utilities included or not?
That I'm not well versed enough to know today. And just I think when I get into talking a little more about the project, what you'll see is we're talking about things that are a little ways off. So we're probably talking about units. The earliest units will be coming online probably like end of 2025, early 2026, and it's probably going to be about a 7-year build out. So these things are going to be built, let's say, between 2026 and 2033 about. So over the next 10 years. So there's going to be a phasing in. Nothing in land development in a project of this scale happens quickly. It's going to happen over time in segments. We got to walk down this path. Which gives us a lot of time to incorporate feedback and test our theories in the first phase that we can make it better for the second phase, et cetera. But we're talking about things that are a little ways out, and so that way we might be lacking on some of the details, like whether certain utilities are included, because we're talking about units that might not be available for up to 10 years from now, let's say.
How many of you want to have a rental and not ever think about home ownership again?
I just replaced my water heater last night.
Can you rephrase that and say how many would consider a rental?
Sure.
Because I think you
Does
get a
that
different
change
number.
more? So most of you are thinking home ownership would still be something that you would be interested in, and that's a good conversation to know. If a chunk of that is set aside, so that we don't eliminate the one for the other, we're trying to offer two opportunities.
If it's rental, who takes care of the maintenance?
Yeah, so on a project like
Our
this.
friend Rick.
No.
He's
not
got
me,
people.
not me. No. And I should probably clarify, I'm not the owner or the developer. So I'm the civil engineer that's been in front of the boards working on the project. So in a lot of ways, I guess I'm like sort of like the development kind of spokesperson and the designer of the project, but I'm not the owner or the developer or anything like that. What will happen usually is once these projects get built, they get turned over to an on-site management company. A project like this is big enough where the management would likely be on-site. So, there would be like an office as part of it that you go to and you collect packages and do maintenance requests and all that kind of thing there.
Let's see. One more question back here.
How many apartments are we talking about total?
So, sorry, my answer. Yeah. So the question was how many apartments are we talking about total? So at 550 King Street, it's a total of 780 apartments, and 78 of those are the affordable 10%.
Okay. Yes. And so, what I also wanted to ask Rick is, you had mentioned the pricing as well for the market rate average income units, and then for the high-end market rate units. Could you just repeat those as well?
So we talked before about the affordable, which made up that sort of the first part of the bar graph on page 10. The middle one, which is gray, those are the market rate ones. So those are ones for people who don't qualify for affordable housing. Maybe you don't meet the income restrictions or whatever, but the market rate component, we think that those apartments are going to rent in the neighborhood of around $3,000 for the average size unit. And those will be comprised of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units, just like the affordable ones will be. So there'll be a range of how much, but round numbers, I think it's safe to say around 3,000. We think that there's an opportunity in Littleton because, generally speaking, the demographic here is pretty well off. That there's going to be a desire to have some higher end units as well that sort of reach for the top market. So these are not the ones that are probably the subject of most of the conversation today, but as a way to sort of cast a wide net as we can, bring in a mixed population of people all living together in this sort of village style format. Those higher end units will probably go upwards of, I'd say, $3,500 a month to $4,000 a month. So those will be maybe like the top floor kind of penthouse style apartments. They're probably a lot larger, maybe have more amenities in unit, preferred locations on site, et cetera. So we're still on I'll call this the pre-design stage. So we're allowed by zoning to go up to 6 floors. Some of the designs that I've seen, though, are mostly 5 floors for the taller buildings, but there's actually a mix of building heights on site. I feel like I'm just going to end up getting into most of the development spiel right now. But so
Do you want
there's.
to do your show and tell, or?
Yeah, it'll give us something to talk about in a minute if I don't do it now.
Okay.
So some of the buildings on site will only be 1 story. Some of them will be 2 stories. Some will be 3 stories. Those smaller, lower buildings are going to be close to King Street. We don't want to have 6-story buildings out on King Street. That's too large. The larger buildings will be in the back of the site where the big IBM parking lots are today, and sort of away from the road, so it sort of transitions. Yeah. So we're going to have some housing opportunities in that front area as well. So opportunities to sort of live above the shops, if you will.
Do you want to reference?
Yeah.
The ones right there.
Is this one that we can? So this is
Yes.
page 11 of the packet.
So do we rent apartments or buy a home?
That's right. Yep. So traditionally, these type of units are either apartments that you rent or condos that you buy. What we're proposing, though, as part of the project so far, is 100% rental. But we're here to listen again. If there's a strong desire in town for some of these units to be condominiums, I think we're open to listen. And I think if that was a community desire, we'd be open to going back to the planning board and talking about that. But the way it's approved now, it's all rental. So none for purchase. All apartment. Yep. All rental. Yep. Yep. But at this time, there's no condos proposed. Yeah. So right now, all of the units that we're talking about are all for rent. Yeah. If at all. Yeah. Right now, there's no plan for condos in there. Yeah.
So real quick, I think it is important if everyone can take a quick look at page 11 to what Rick was just speaking about in terms of the orange buildings, I guess you would say, in the front.
Yeah. Yeah. So those sort of orangey buildings. Is this a good time to just get into the development kind of overview?
Sounds great.
Okay, yeah. I feel like we're going to get there. So I assume you all are familiar with the IBM site. So the IBM site is now vacant. There's no user in those big buildings that are back there anymore. It served the community really well for quite some time when it was digital and then IBM. But like all big office users, they've sort of gone away. And so you guys have this site that's sort of well located in town. It's right off the highway. It's walkable to your downtown. And it's a wonderful opportunity to talk about, together, how can we reposition this parcel so that it can serve the needs of Littleton for the next 30 years. And we think that means, we think sustainability moving forward means a bit of diversification in terms of what exactly goes back on the site. A mistake, I think, of the prior office developments was doing 100% office on the site. If the office market goes away, so does the vibrancy of the site goes away with it. If you mix, though, and you've got some housing on there, people are always going to need a place to live. If you have some retail, some shopping, people are always going to be looking for recreational amenities, places to shop. And if you have some office as well, then you're a little more resilient to the future markets and the ups and downs of the economy. So we want to make sure that this site is sustainable in terms of it has ability to be vibrant for a long time and to serve the residents of Littleton for a long time as a place to live, as a place to visit and shop, or as a place to sort of, as you drive by, a place to feel proud about as something that's sort of a cornerstone of the community. And because of its location where it is so walkable to downtown, we think that a vibrant site at 550 King Street, if we do this the right way, will help sort of rise up the downtown as well. They'll be getting to participate in all those extra people walking around, shopping at their shops, eating at their restaurants, and it's sort of a bit of a rising tide lifts all boats sort of thought process here. So having said that, we started talking to the town about 2 years ago to figure out what does the town want on this site for the future looking forward. And then there's obviously from the developer side, what does the developer need to make the project financially viable? And so you come together and you have these kind of conversations and you find out, okay, what are the community needs we can weave in, and what can the community live with in terms of what the developer needs, and you sort of strike a deal to make something that totally works for everybody. So this site, I'd say there's sort of like 4 major components of the site. So buildings N and O, which are the white like kind of squares on the top right of the site, those are the existing IBM buildings. We're working really hard with a bunch of brokers, and we're trying to rent those buildings. We think those buildings are probably going to need significant reinvestment. Our hope is for those to be able to secure like a research and development type or a technology type company to come into those buildings, but those buildings will need a lot of work to be useful for something other than the large office buildings that they are today. So that's sort of one area of the site. The area in the front along King Street where you see all the reddish orange buildings there, those are going to be what you all in town have called for a little while now form-based code. So those are going to be traditional New England style buildings. They're going to be shorter in height, between 1 and 4 stories I think is the tallest we're allowed to go. But the ones in the street will probably be more like 1, 2, and 3 stories tall, to sort of ease your way into the development. On the ground floor of those, you'll have shops, restaurants, cafes, things like that, retail, maybe a doctor's office, that kind of thing, a bank. And then to the left of those, you'll see a green space. It looks like it's got trees in it with some sidewalks and a little circle there. That's going to be a public green space that can be used for seasonal town events, live music on the weekends, sort of a fun opportunity that'll exist in sort of what we call kind of like the gateway between this site and the downtown. So that'll be open to the public. You guys will all be able to enjoy that. It'll serve as sort of a mixing point for visitors and residents of this site and local residents just from broader Littleton as well. And then the taller buildings are going to be the ones that are yellow in the back. Those are the buildings that we're allowed to go up to 6 stories. Most of the modeling I've seen, though, on the pre-design, those buildings are skewing more like they're probably going to be 5 stories and not 6. But the tallest we're allowed to go is 6 stories. That's where a lot of the density is. So many of the units that we're talking about are in those yellow buildings. But a few of the units that we're talking about are going to be in those front buildings, those form-based code, those orange buildings. Those will be for the folks who want to live sort of above the shopping. Maybe they want to be in a part of the site that has a little more going on. Those options will be there. And then if you want to be a little more in a dedicated residential area, you can go to the back of the site where the yellow buildings are. Like you probably saw with the housing breakdown, we're trying to get to as many of the different housing needs as we can on one project. The one project will not fix all of everybody's needs for residential needs, but we're trying to get to a lot of the boxes. So, and what I mean by that is we've tried to incorporate these sort of deeply discounted senior units. We've tried to address what I'll call just the regular traditional affordable units. We've tried to get to market rate units, which is just sort of people who don't qualify for the affordable units but still need a place to live, and also to reach for that high-end market too. And the idea is to have this mix of people living together in this sort of village center, if you want to call it that. That'll help create a really vibrant environment. It'll, on the side note, really increase the town's tax base. This new redevelopment will help with some of the town financing, I think, and create a vibrant location that'll serve Littleton well for a long time, hopefully the next 30 years anyway. So that's sort of our overall philosophy with it. In terms of timing and phasing and how this all works, this project is probably going to be built out over a course of 5 to 10 years. And the beginning of construction, you might see some activity next summer, but really we're waiting for sewer. So this project relies on town sewer. And so we are under the understanding, working with LELWD, the local, you all know, you probably pay the bill. So we've been working with them to understand the timing of the sewer and when it's coming to the site and when it'll be available. So we believe that'll be in the summer or fall of 2025 is when we'll be able to hook into it. And so we want to have our buildings coming online shortly after that for the first phase. But this is going to be many phases. So our earliest occupancies will be end of 2025, early 2026, and then it'll carry out to probably like 2033 or so, just in terms of rough timeline. And so I think we're at a great time right now to be having these conversations, and that's why I'm excited to be here for sort of the next part of the program, which is we're pre-designed, and like I said before, I'm not the owner, I'm not the developer, but I'm a part of the project team. I can advocate for you. The things that we hear today, I can advocate to have those put into the units as they're being designed, which hasn't started yet. So my hope is to kind of come away from today with a few bullets and say, you know, Rick promised to try hard for us here, work these things into the plan. That'll make it a more attractive place for us to want to live. And that's why I'm sort of here, is to listen, get that feedback, and then work as your sort of advocate within the design team to help bring as many of these things into the project as we can. That's right.
Rick, if you wouldn't mind, when questions are asked, just kind of repeating it so everybody else can hear.
Yep.
Okay.
I think I got
I
most
have a question. Sounds like you're learning Littleton. It's gonna look like Worcester or whatever. You're gonna have so many people, so many cars. I don't care to live here anymore.
We can talk, we'll get you somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea at all. What happened to Littleton? You're gonna bring in like a couple of thousand people more. Need new schools, you need new fire department. I won't be here, so that's okay. I'll be in Georgia or Idaho or Montana.
Nice.
All right, sir, so let's go ahead and take some questions in the back.
Who is TEC?
So I'm Rick from TEC. We're a civil engineering company.
Who owns the property currently?
So the property is owned by Lupoli Companies,
Where are they located?
Lawrence, Massachusetts.
Is that private corporation? Public corporation?
It's a private company. Yep, Lupoli Companies is private. Yep.
Summary, this is a proposal that's not been approved, right?
So that has been approved as a master plan, but the construction's not slated to start until at the earliest next year.
Corporation's out of Lawrence,
Yes, yes, sir.
and it's going to be all apartments at this stage,
That's correct.
with solar eventually.
Eventually, yep, that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Have you considered for N&O a satellite of some local college?
So the question was for buildings N and O, which are the current IBM buildings, have we considered a sort of satellite campus for a college? We are open to anything. We're trying. I'll just tell you that. I'll tell you how it is for those buildings. There's not a strong market for those buildings. They're large buildings. They're very big. The reason they don't make good office buildings anymore is because you could be in the center of that building and be about 200 feet from a window. These are large buildings, so they're hard to chop up.
That's been my career.
Yeah, I know, but people's expectations of the workplace have changed a lot. I think I probably don't have to tell you guys, but the younger generations, they have different things they look for in office space, and it's trending more and more that you need a lot of bright light, a lot of windows, to be able to attract people to work there. So we are open to all ideas. We have, like I said, there are brokers that are working for the developer who are talking to all kinds of tenants who could be interested in those buildings. In any event, they're going to need probably substantial rehabilitation in those buildings to make them into something useful for the future. But it's our goal to try to salvage them and use them for some use. I think that'd be a wonderful attraction to the town. To have a college campus there, that'd be wonderful. It'd be great for the site too, for the project and the vibrancy of the project. But it's a competitive process. These particularly if you're a state college, you have to go out to an RFP process. So you can't just go anywhere you choose. We have to compete against other people who are going to be offering similar space. So we're open to the idea. Our brokers, I think, have probably tried knocking on anybody's door who will answer, and I expect that has included colleges as well.
Just don't tell Maura Healy that you got all this open living space.
We'll keep that to us.
All right, great, next door.
Have you considered, since they're not being used anyway, the three-tiered nursing home, assisted living? So, I was really counting on that coming here. I think you about a little too much the carpet, but I'm going to have to.
Yeah, so the question was, have we considered any type of age-in-place, assisted living, nursing facilities, that type of thing on the project? Right now, those are not in the project. Right now, all the residential components that we've talked about are independent living. We have talked about, though, for the 40 units that are dedicated for seniors, that there'd be some design into those units that would make them to be able to expand people's opportunity to live independently for longer, right? There are conveniences you can make.
She's talking in and O.
Yeah,
in and out.
Yeah, why not? I worked in both those buildings. They were sufficient light, but that's because they were low. But in the advanced situations, it probably doesn't matter. And and you have the other over here, so you only need the two over here. If you're needed a little nursing home, you go back to your independent living.
Yeah.
I'm kind of counting on someplace in Littleton doing this, and I'm getting up there, and I've been counting on this for 20 years, and now it's going to go by me, and I'm going to be moving.
Yeah, it's
5 years, whatever.
Like we are open to all ideas for those buildings.
Well, that's my idea. Now, is it economically not feasible? Is that why they don't? You got to renovate the buildings anyway.
Yeah, so I'm not a specialist in assisted living facilities, so I'm not aware what upgrades have to happen to the buildings to be able to accommodate. I imagine there's all kinds of life safety things, for example, that would have to be brought in. I imagine the air handling would probably need some work to accommodate assisted living facility that's there. I imagine people would want to have a window in their room, and there's a good core of the building that's not anywhere near windows. So I think it would probably be some selective demolition. Can you tear down buildings, parts of the building to create more windows? those are things that come into my mind, but this is not my area of expertise. But in general, we'd be open to the concept. Any reuse of those buildings, we'd be open to listening to.
To the extent that you're collecting a sense of the meeting here, I second Karen's suggestion.
Why don't we do a hand?
I'm not going to want to sell my house until I'm no longer able to do the work required to live there. I'm going to want an assisted living
Yeah.
arrangement.
Could we have a raise of hands for the three-tiered thing?
Yeah.
Would that be okay?
Yeah.
So that raise of hands was just, as you said, Karen, for 3-tier, and you mean for assisted living in terms of migration, community of care?
And you don't even need the first one because you've got all that rental over here, you could sort of link it. But the second and third tier, you know, we're beyond hope. We'd like to have our friends visit us.
I saw about a dozen hands go up, so thank you for that
Oh,
question.
behind you too. There was the least, yeah.
Turn around.
Get more all I wanted.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
all I wanted out of him, Sal. That's all Sal had to do for me, really. I don't know him, but I know he's a good guy, and he is, I wish he'd do that.
We have a question right behind you, Rick.
My problem with all apartments is that you get a lot of people that might be here for a year or two. If you had condos, people would come and they would stay in Littleton longer, and they would maybe participate in our town government. They would volunteer to help on committees and things. Apartments mean transients, come and go, and driving up and down the highway to go to work, and don't care about Littleton. We need people that care about Littleton.
I think everybody could hear that one, but I'll just say I agree with you. You know, I agree with you, but here's one thing I also want to just bring up is that for people to be here in Littleton and to care about Littleton, they have to move here at some point, and it's very hard to afford a home to buy a new home here in Littleton. These are also opportunities for people to come into Littleton, to live here, to fall in love with Littleton, and hopefully someday to buy some people's houses that are looking to downsize or move out. So there is a feeder program aspect of this where you're right. The nature is that many people they don't live in their apartments forever, or at least not the same way that we all live in our homes for a long time. But for people to come to Littleton, they need to be able to arrive here at some point, get their first foot in the door here. And I think people who spend time in Littleton will really love it. And our hope is that these people graduate into hopefully buying these 2 and 3 bedroom houses as they start their families, and that they're looking to buy here in Littleton.
Right now, it's more than half of the percentage who live in Littleton, they are seniors.
So I think was the question why is there more than half of Littleton's population is seniors?
We don't need any more.
Oh, you don't need any
We
more?
are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so the goal of the project, it's not to make more seniors. but
Here we come, though.
Yeah, but it is to accommodate the seniors that are here.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
They were going to accommodate.
Yes, that's right.
Whoever are here.
That's
Because
right.
We are in Littleton, I don't know, it's more than 50%. So you can see it here.
Yeah, I believe you. I believe that about the demographics, and so our goal is, many of you are living in probably 3 or 4 bedroom houses now, or maybe larger, and that you want to find options where you can stay in town but downsize a little bit into a place that's vibrant and active, and so that's what we're trying to accomplish with this. And to the maximum that we're allowed by the law, we want to prioritize Littleton seniors to be the first people that move into these buildings. So I think I heard 70% is that maximum that we're allowed to. If we could, we would say they're only for Littleton residents, but we're not allowed to do that under the law. But 70% of them, which is a good percent, can be set aside for Littleton residents. And I think that's we all need to work together with the town to make sure that they apply for the right protection to make sure that they are available for Littleton seniors first.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a question over here, and you want it back to before we then ask you all the questions. You.
Okay. When the project is built out and at max capacity, including N&O, how many people a day are you guys projecting would be like on campus during like the peak time, when people are shopping, when people are eating, when people are at work in N&O?
Yeah, I think our hope is, this is probably not going to be something I should say in a public meeting. Our hope is that it's a lot. So we hope that it will rival the days of when IBM was thriving here in terms of people in and out. So I think we're talking about numbers like, maybe 1,500 to 2,000 people, plus or minus. And not all of them are living here, but visiting as well. We want it to be active. We want it to be thriving. If there's any location in Littleton where you can accommodate that kind of traffic in and out, it's here. It's right off the highway. So your impact on other town streets is very minimal. We're not traveling through someone's neighborhood necessarily to get to the site from the highway, let's say. So we hope that it's a vibrant location. We hope that there's a lot of people. We hope that there's a lot of activity, because not only is that going to help the surrounding businesses downtown, but it's also going to help the retail that we put out front be very successful. And coming in from Westford on 110, this is going to be a very visible location. So it's going to be, in many cases, the first impression of Littleton for people coming in from 110. And we want this place to be thriving. We want the shops to be well maintained. We want them to be beautiful. We want them to be fitting of what should be expected in Littleton. And to do that, we need it to be thriving. We need people here to make it successful.
When IBM was here, didn't they have roughly the same number?
Yeah, it's in those, in that ballpark, yeah. I think there's something like 1,500 parking spaces that are there in the existing parking lots today. So that's probably just an indication they probably had maybe a little more than that in terms of number of employees, assuming a little bit of carpooling and absentee rate, et cetera.
Did you want to comment?
Oh, no, I was saying it was 2,000.
2,000.
So we'd probably be looking at double that.
No, because buildings N and O on the plan are not going to go back as office. Those are going to be substantially less, right, than what IBM was operating at in their heyday. More than likely, although I'm open to all the ideas about, if there was a way to make them work for assisted living, that'd be wonderful. A college, satellite campus, that'd be wonderful. But we're counting on those buildings probably more likely being like research and development, which is a pretty low employee count for building size. A lot of lab space and robotics and equipment and stuff like that is what makes up most of those buildings. So when those occupancies come down from 2,000 to a couple hundred, that gives room for the new residents and the new shopping visitors and the like.
Okay,
But,
thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Yep. Okay, that is a question over here.
Yes. My question is this project evolved? Will there be other meetings like this to get further input from the senior citizens?
Sure.
And obviously other townsfolk as well?
Yeah. So the question was, as the project evolves and as we go through the stage, there'll be more meetings like this to collect feedback from everybody and the different stakeholders. I spend a lot of time in Littleton now. I have been for the last couple of years, and we're going to be spending a lot of time here for the next probably 10 years as this project works its way through. So I think that's something I'd be comfortable committing to, is that we'll be, we're required by the permit to come back every time we want to build a new building. There'll be a planning board public meeting. Everybody's invited. You can all come and tell us either how wonderful we're doing or how not wonderful we're doing. So there'll be this opportunity for this continuous feedback loop as we're going, and the goal is to keep getting better at this as we go and keep getting it closer and closer to what you want to see here over time.
No, will that also include the project engineer, designer, if you will?
Yep. So that's me.
Other than you, I mean, you're only civil, but you get the architectural aspects of it, landscaping, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, many times, at least the meetings we've had to date, we find it's helpful to have one voice to communicate and one source of accountability. And I'll just give you an example. If we had, let's say, a project team of 20 people talking about the project, and one person didn't do what they said they were going to do during the meeting, and then we just don't have that person come back anymore, it's awfully easy for them to skate away.
Yeah.
So far, it's pretty much exclusively been me talking to the select board and the planning board, and that also holds me accountable to the things that we talk about. We prefer that method of development because it's directly accountable. So I'll be spending a considerable amount of time here over the next 10 years, coming to all kinds of meetings. I hope we do more meetings like this, but even in the absence of meetings like this, there'll be lots of public meetings at the planning board where people can come and they can speak about the project.
So you're the middleman between the project designer, if you will,
yeah,
the town and us.
Yep. Like I said, I view myself, middleman's probably more appropriate, but I try to use the word advocate. I want to help you. I want to help incorporate the ideas that I hear today and that I hear from other stakeholders in town into the project. And I think that's why, probably one of the few reasons why the project has gotten as far along as it has, is that we've been committed to this campaign of outreach, listening, and trying to work in the ideas and work together to put together something that works for as
Now,
many
as
people as
time
we
goes
can.
on, as you know, inflation goes up, what is that also going to do, not only for the price of construction, but also for the cost of, you know, the units themselves, whether one buys or rents?
Yeah, so I know as it relates to the rentals, I'm going to glance across the table. As it relates to the rentals, they do those annually that they update the median incomes.
Yep.
So those get updated as we go, and like was mentioned, they seem to only go up, unfortunately. So as those median incomes go up, so too does the rent that's allowed under each of them. Those trickle up as well. So the longer out that we go, the more likely inflation and rising construction costs are to impact the cost. On the developer side, like putting aside the housing stuff for just a minute, it's a major problem.
Is it theoretically possible to make it almost financially impossible for senior citizens to, you know, get into these units?
I don't think so. No, I don't think it would make it infeasible. So we have a strong commitment, and it's actually required of us by our planning board approval that we're going to have these 40 units that are 30 to 60% AMI. Now, the amount of rent that you pay at that 30 to 60% AMI will continue to go up as inflation and everyone else's costs go up as well.
Yep.
But we're required to do this, and just like as we project ahead a couple of years, we think that those apartments are probably going to rent in the $800 to $1,200 range. May those be 5 years from now $1,000 and $1,400, maybe, but it's not going to be $5,000.
And I just want to mention that that's not very common, that a development, those are considered what's called deeply affordable. Your standard affordable housing project is going to have that 80% requirement, where currently right now in communities all over Massachusetts, that means an affordable 2-bedroom apartment is going for about $2,300 a month, which to me doesn't sound affordable, but
More than my mortgage.
that's how it calculates out. Right, it's probably more than most people's mortgages in this room, if people still have one too. So the deeply affordable is really an important aspect of that, and I think it's really wonderful that it's been incorporated.
Another point to that is, Social Security goes up by a certain amount. I would think the raise, wouldn't go up any higher than Social Security.
So I know the gentleman behind you had a
We
question.
already have a point across the street. We're gonna build another one here that's half empty with all of the retail. You're gonna have the same thing here.
So this is a question about the broader development program. The point, as you know, is 100% retail product, right? So it's a shopping center, basically, right? This is not, what we're proposing here is not a shopping center. This is primarily a place to live. And there's supporting and complementary retail uses that are there. For example, if you live in one of these buildings and you want to go grab a cup of coffee, it'd be nice to walk your building and go grab a cup of coffee, right? And not go across to the point. Now, I think the point will benefit from the people living here. There'll be more people looking to buy groceries. We're not going to have a supermarket on site. So I think there's a way that both of these things work together. But this is not a shopping center, like the point. This is primarily.
There's a lot of retail.
So the orange on your plan.
And, stores and offices.
There'll be shops, but there'll be smaller scale shops. There'll be the doctor's office, maybe. There'll be coffee shops. There'll be small retail shops, but not at the scale of a full-blown shopping center like at the point. It's a different. This is more of a village-style concept where it's primarily a place to live with supporting retail and restaurants. The point is a retail shopping center. Period.
Thank you. We start here with Mary.
I'm just wondering about the traffic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you put 700 apartments in there, 700 cars. The traffic is awful right now. I can't get out of my yard at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, or I can't go the other way unless I go around the other way to go in town, and it's already horrendous. Has that been addressed?
Yeah. So the like we talked about before, location. So where in town would you want to be able to do development? Theoretically speaking, you'd like to have it be close to the highway, very close to an interchange. It doesn't get closer to the highway than what this is. The reason you want to have it close to the highway is so that these thousands of cars that you're talking about They're not traveling down back roads through people's neighborhoods to get to their destination. Remember what this place is primarily. It's a place to live. It's not an office building. So people are mostly going to be leaving here and either hopping on the shuttle, which should save on traffic a little bit, to the train station, or they'll be likely getting onto 495, which should impact very few people.
Well, you could be going to Boston, because Boston, you can't afford to live in Boston.
But
You can't afford to live out that way.
yeah, I agree. But how would you get there? You either take the train, right,
No,
or you drive it.
You drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you go into Belmont or something, you're not going to take a train.
That's right. Yep. And so this has, you know, a sort of immediate 495 access at this site here. So that minimizes the impact on town roads as it relates to traffic.
And Mary, one of the other things to consider is that we, as a planning board, have yet to see the traffic reports, and so all of that is still to come. So we still have some say in all of that.
That's right. And separate from the town review, those are also going to be reviewed by Mass DOT. Mass DOT owns Great Road and 110 King Street on our frontage. So there's going to be a state review in addition to the town review on that stuff as well.
Okay, yes.
Is there any possibility of making a separate entrance to 495 right from these?
That would be awesome, but no. But no.
Because in Lincoln at Route 2,
Yeah.
when they blocked off that big development, they created a separate.
Yeah.
You mean by Alewives?
No, in Lincoln.
In Lincoln, okay.
Yeah, no, this is too close to the existing interchange. So unfortunately, no, that wouldn't be an option for a project like this. That would be awesome, though.
So one more question, and then we're going to transition to the next part.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is that based on these listening sessions here and hearing what people might be interested in, the possibility exists that you could condoize maybe 70 condos at mixed price ranges and stuff like that, and that would have to go by the planning board to get approved and all of that, and some of them would have to be affordable and some not. So is that, you're open to the possibility of making some condos here?
We're open. Yep, we're open to that idea. Yep, and for the sake of clarity, early on when we were first in front of the planning board, we said this is likely to be all rental, so we just wanted to represent that. But if there's a strong desire from the community to include some condominiums, then we're all ears. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So,
Because the seniors, they sell their house, the big houses, and they want a smaller condo. That's what actually, I have a house, big, I sell it, I want the snow. I'm looking for a condo to buy. So, something.
all right, so thank you so much for all of your comments and questions. So there are a couple of other quick questions that folks had asked. Remember when you signed in online or talked with Kim, I just want to make sure that some of these other questions got asked. In terms of the parking situation.
Sure. Yeah, so there's a lot of parking spaces. There's a lot there today, too. So the site is designed to have enough parking on it and even a little more than enough to be able to support all the uses that are proposed. There will be nobody that's relying on parking in Littleton Common or anything like that. All the parking is going to be contained on site.
Okay. And then would this project include housing opportunities for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities?
I'm not an expert in this. I'd have to understand what that entails. So what I'll say is it's exclusively independent living that's proposed. So if that question entails some type of like residential care program, like for example, I know like Melmark is one organization that offers that sort of care. That's not proposed here.
And can you give us any sense of residential design guidelines that you might be incorporating for the senior units in specific?
So we don't have a lot of specifics, and actually maybe that's hopefully part of the next topic, which is this sort of open discussion about these senior units. What do you guys want to see in the senior units? Our goal with the units is to make them be able to expand the amount of time that you can live there independently. And so if there's conveniences and things that make it more possible to live there longer, those are things we want to, I think, focus on and make sure that we incorporate those into those senior units.
Great.
But there's no, the apartments themselves have not been designed. We're probably going to be starting the design of those apartments next year. for construction, like I said, years down the road. So this is kind of the perfect time to be collecting that information, and I can help advocate and lobby for you among the design team to include these features that we talk about.
Okay, great. So what we'd like to do for the last part.
Yeah,
Oh.
one more behind you.
I'm sorry.
I'm seeing a lot of parking with solar arrays above it, which of course is pretty nice when the weather is inclement. Also, is there any discussion about doing parking under the units?
Yeah, so the graphics can be a little deceptive because there are actually parking underneath the units. There's a little bit of topography on the site. Those of you who drive by a lot, or maybe the next time you drive by, try to look a little closer. What you'll notice is that the parking lots that are closer to the highway are actually considerably lower than King Street is. So there's an opportunity to sort of hide a level of parking where nobody even sees it. But what that does, by stacking the parking like that, it opens up more ground space for green space and for sidewalks and for other better uses of the ground plane. So structured parking is part of the plan. That's how the parking's being solved on the site. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you for all those questions. Mark, I hope this is working. What I'd like to do now, actually, because we have such a wonderful, wonderful number of folks here today, is I'd actually like to pass this microphone around so that it's easier for everybody to participate who wants to participate. And the question is, what would you like to see at this development or elsewhere in Littleton for seniors? Okay, so think about that. That's the main question for you. What would you like to see? What do you want? Whether it's you want the campus environment, whether you want more condominiums, whether you want something else, now is your opportunity. So what I'm going to do is just pass this around. If you could just speak into the microphone and then pass it on to the next person. You don't have to speak if you don't want to, but this is an opportunity. I figured this might be the most expedient, best way to get everyone's input who wants to participate. So who would like to start? All right, thank you so much.
So I'd like to see grab bars in the shower, next to the shower, next to the bathtub, if there's a tub. Just grab bars. My balance was wonderful. It's not that wonderful anymore. And it's probably going to get worse. So that's one. And I've been in a couple of buildings recently. Apparently there's some new technology, lenses and reflectors, a thing called a light chimney, that into a big building like N&O here, you can put these things in. I can't tell you how pleasing this is. In the middle of a huge building with no windows anywhere, you have broad daylight. It's really great. And I wonder if that wouldn't be something you could put into areas where somebody wants to have daylight and it's not near the windows.
Yeah, like a indoor atrium kind of thing.
Yeah. Just coming down from the roof, a thing about 18 inches in diameter, an amazing amount of light.
Yeah, interesting.
Thank you.
I'd like to see some standalone condominiums in Littleton, not necessarily just for seniors, but just standalone condos. And I get a sense that I'm not the only one in this room that would like that, so maybe you could take some kind of a survey of who might be interested in something like that.
Thank you.
And at what price point?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure.
Because
I understand what you're saying. If you sell your house for, what was the thing, 800 they were saying? Well, what if we got to 5 or 6? You know? I mean, I guess you could do a range. You could do 5 or 6. You could have, some people want to downsize a lot. Some people just want to change their lifestyle, just don't want to bother with the yard work or anything like that.
You know what I'm saying?
So I'm saying that I think you have a range of price points, but I think the condo concept, I think, is what a lot of people are looking for.
Thank you.
I'd like an Italian bakery. I'd also like to ask you to tell us what's going on with the mill building. Sal bought that building also? Is that also going to be apartments?
I appreciate the question, but we do want to make sure we get to everybody too, so go ahead.
Yes. Yes, Sal purchased the building. Yes, the plan is for that to be
Where are they going to park?
On site as well. Yeah.
What is that going to be?
So that mill building's pretty large, as you know, especially it goes back a ways. So it's actually surprising how much land is back there.
So how many apartments there?
So over there, we have approvals for 285 units. I'd be surprised if that many get built, but that's what's approved.
And also with 10% affordable.
Also 10% affordable there as well.
Yes. Karen?
I'd just like to, I'm thinking of other things. I'd love to see both the idea of a school coming in. I think Lowell would be interested in something like that. They were all trying to go all over the place. So, plus two-tiered. This is the second and third tier, you know, we're too old.
Okay, remember, what is it that you would like to see as a senior?
You won't like what I have to say, so.
You need to say it. Welcome to share, whatever it is.
I've been living in Littleton for 62 years, and I loved it when we moved here, from New York City to here. Littleton is not Littleton anymore, and it's going to get worse, in my opinion, not better, but worse for me, maybe not worse for the environment or, you know, all towns and cities need growth in a certain way. We're talking about 1,000 apartments. The population is going to break us, I believe. But, you know, I don't know how to stop it, except I can stop it, but I can leave. And I won't be able to stay here, but I will be able to leave. It will break my heart to see the growth potential that we're talking about. And that's why I didn't want to talk to you.
I would like to agree with the idea of having some staged living arrangements where people who have to sell their house because their bodies are starting to fail would have some kind of assisted living options. Not necessarily high complexity care, but many of us in 5 to 10 years, we're getting kind of creaky, and we're going to get creakier. So some kind of stage assistance, I think, would be a wise idea.
I agree, he's my husband.
Actually, I just wanted to confirm that this is not HUD housing, right? Senior, there's AMI, there's 800 a month. It comes out of your pocket, and there's no HUD housing in any of these, even the family units. Is that something, you can say that now, but after it's built, 15 years, will it turn into HUD housing?
I'm not familiar with the term.
No, I think you mean referring to public housing, yes, no, it cannot.
Massachusetts, how they're forcing places to take in families. That's not what this is going to be set up as at all.
No, this is not going to be like a housing project, if you want to call it.
Yes,
No,
yeah.
it's not that.
Okay.
I'd like to endorse the 1, 2, 3 people that spoke before me, and I realize I'm aging out of the whole process here. I'm too old.
Well, I'm already there too, so. Anyway, but, so keep with that in mind. I have a question which is a little irrelevant, but I also understand that Mr. Lapoli purchased the Yangtze River area. Are there any plans for that development of that area?
Yep.
I'm just curious, that's one, and then I have a suggestion about housing.
Yep. So we view that as a kind of continuation of the frontage. So on I'm sorry, on page 11 of the handout that showed the development plan, the Yangtze River site is just to the right of that building, building H, and we think that's going to be a continuation of that form-based code, low-level shops, maybe one floor of apartments above it, something like that.
Great. And my thoughts about housing for seniors. It needs to be one level. Stairs become a real problem, you know, and it's just, in addition to the bars, a lot of the ADA concepts, I'm sure you're aware of them, and easy to get information about rather than going into it now.
Yeah.
But
Yep. Yeah. I think we're looking at ADA. We're looking at like the universal access type stuff. We're looking at I think they call them wet rooms, but basically curbless showers. grab bars, all that kind of
Raised
stuff.
toilet seats.
Yep, raised toilet seats,
Oh, yeah.
all the things that, but these are, they sound like not a big deal, but if
they
you add
are.
them all up, they are.
They are a big deal.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify first, if you're having 700 units in your first area with 10% affordable, and then you're going to put, 200 units or 240 in the other group with 10% affordable. So at the most, you're going to have 80 deeply affordable units, if I'm figuring that out right, in the two areas. So that's what? That's like 900 apartments that are going to be market, or that people can come into town to rent these places out. And I do see there being a problem with traffic in the center if all these other places are going to be built. I mean, I think the affordable units are a great thing. I would agree that they should be staged down. I like that idea. So you could go in, and then if you get worse, you could go and be, you know what I mean? Not necessarily to a nursing home, but staged down.
I would like to see, to make sure that in the apartments for the elderly, that there be laundry facilities in the apartments. That, to me, to have to take it to a general room is just, some people can't do it. I agree with the traffic. Traffic is getting atrocious in town, and which I don't see an end to that. But I just don't think that there should be more apartments available for the elderly, and they're not. 20% is ridiculous. Like one of the women said, the number of people that are elderly in this town and what they're trying to give us is like nothing. It's ridiculous. That's all I have to say.
And maybe I could just say one thing, clarifying too, if that's okay on that. So it's not that only 40 units are being set aside for elderly. Anybody, these market rate units, anybody, or even the 80% AMI ones, which are the in between the market rate and the deeply affordable ones, there's no age restriction on those upward either. So I believe that as people sell their homes and want to remain in Littleton, but they want to remain here in a place that's fun to live, they may very well rent a market rate a unit because maybe they don't qualify for the affordable units, and those options will exist on this site too. So it's more than just the 40 or just the deeply discounted affordable units, but all Littleton residents will be able to participate in the market rate ones if they want.
Thank you.
Yep.
She beat me to the fact about the laundry. That's a big one for me.
Yeah, you get that right.
I'm just wondering why you're not going to, I know you're considering condos, but why you didn't plan it in the beginning and it's all apartments. A lot of seniors would like to downsize from our big houses and have a reasonable sized home or condo. And it's very disappointing that you didn't include condos. When you lost me in the very beginning when you first said this is not going to be Bluebird Way. That was unfortunate because you lost me.
Yes, yes.
How big would you like it to be?
I'm not sure what I'm gonna do in my process. One thing I am sure of, no apartments.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One, what about security for the complex?
Yeah, so this property, as it gets upgraded, will have a lot of security. So there'll be cameras in all the garages. There'll be cameras outside the buildings, monitoring the spaces to make sure that it's a secure environment.
Now, a lot of these senior citizens are on, for instance, like me, for instance, on a CPAP machine. Will there be power backup in the event of a power failure? Because a lot of them could be, on life-saving equipment, like, oxygen, for instance, in some cases.
That's a good question. And that's something that we can talk about, what are the design things that can be worked into the units? And so it's like what elements of the apartment are provide backup on generator? Yeah, that's a good question. And maybe what we could do is make sure that an outlet in the bedrooms is on one that's on the generator.
For lights and stuff like that, because my wife is in an assisted living facility, and they lost power, and only the business aspects of the facility had lights, like in the corridors, but the rooms and everything else were complete darkness.
That's scary.
And what about internet access?
Yeah, so this.
I mean, everybody relies on the internet and cell phones today, but I haven't heard anything mentioned about whether it's going to be,
Oh yeah, this will have all the bells and whistles for technology. So there'll be high-speed internet to all the buildings. More than that, though, I think there'll probably be substantial 5G coverage for people's cell phones. So even if you're visiting on your cell phone, let's say, you'll have access to Wi-Fi's in all the shops. There'll be Wi-Fi at the public plaza where the green space is.
And who's going to be responsible for that? Is it going to be like from either Comcast or Verizon and so on and so forth?
Yeah, for the individual apartments, yes, but the landowner, who's going to be like the property manager down the line, will be responsible for all, I'll call it like general amenities. So like, how do you get Wi-Fi in the green, on the town green? That'll be under the responsibility of the developer. Yeah.
Now, a lot of the senior citizens like to exercise. Will also be a gym, for instance, where people might want to, go and exercise. If the weather's bad, obviously they can't go out for walks.
Yeah, right. That's a good suggestion. Yeah. So on our plan now, we have not segregated. We have retail. We haven't said what exactly the retail is going to be. I think a fitness facility would be a great use of some of that space. Yeah.
Maybe a swimming pool.
You're gonna complete it.
And it was mentioned previously, and I want to emphasize the fact that I would hope all the apartments would be ADA compliant.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Every building will have elevators. All the units will be ADA compliant. Yeah.
And also, an emergency alert system. If there's a fall or something, especially if it's, they might want to wear a pendant around that's tied into a central system, so if they fall, they'll get some sort of an emergency response.
Will someone be on base all the time in case someone fell?
Yeah.
Is someone going to be there? And the other thing
if you probably will tie into 911, I would imagine it'll tie into 911, the fire station or the police station.
Yeah, that's assisted living. I was going to say that. So this is more independent living. So I don't know.
But take a look at the age of the seniors.
Yeah.
Some of us are 70, 80. Maybe some will probably be in their 90s. Accidents happen even when the younger generation, like yourself.
Thank you. First time today I've been called young. I think yeah. Let me go back to the team and find out, in a setting that's outside of assisted living, what are some of those technologies that exist that could help that process. Let me find that out.
People could elderly will fall. They have a tripping accident or something like that. And, if they do fall, hit the head, for instance, immediate care is almost a requisite. Otherwise, it could be, develop into real serious problems.
Yeah. Let me learn about that. I don't know offhand, but what I want to find out is what are those technologies outside of assisted living setting that could mimic some of those conditions that we could implement.
Yeah, I would say this would be an assisted living facility, but you really should be thinking about some of those amenities that are in assisted living facility.
Yep.
Because some of us are probably not too far. It could be just a happy away from
That's right.
One of those facilities.
That's right. Yep. Thank you.
Really good questions. Thank you. Yeah.
Next.
Well, I would like to see a mixed use in the location. I would love to have a nice condominium complex around here that looks nice and rural and not so expensive I couldn't afford it. The area down at Nagog where they built all those apartment buildings is terrible. It's horrendous. And the condos there are so close together. They have no style, no personality or anything. And that's what I would really hate to see here in Littleton. No, not Avalon. It's Meadows, Wildflower Meadows and all that in there. So it would be really nice to have something like that in Littleton. I would want to go there myself, but if it's all going to be rentals, I would have no use for that. And I think a lot of people want to have their own home. They don't want to pay rent. So those are my thoughts.
Well, I'll continue. I would like to own my home, and I hope you consider to have some of those condominiums. Just have a comment.
Speak into the mic.
Good thing that
Can you speak into the mic, please? Because we can't hear you.
it's a good thing.
Hold it closer to your mouth, please.
Shopping plaza, can you hear me?
Yes.
A little shopping plaza there, because in Littleton, there's no town center. There's no sidewalks where you're going to shops and seeing your neighbors hello. There's no street like that here. No town center, too bad.
Yeah, this will be nice. I think you'll enjoy the orange buildings will be like that.
That's what I mean.
Yeah,
We need something like that, I think. Okay.
Thank you. Just wanted to echo everything about the ADA and obviously the in-unit laundry. I see people who are downsizing having trouble with storage. So I don't know if storage has been factored in and really not just having storage, but the ability to easily access it.
Yeah, a lot of times they end up in like basements and stuff, it's hard to get to.
Yeah, I know that's part of downsizing, it is what it is, but some storage I think would be great. The mailboxes, I understand a lot of that is dictated by the federal postmaster, but from what I've seen, they tend to do what's easiest for the postman and not what is easiest for the residents. So I don't know if there's some sort of exception that they could get, even if it was just for the seniors, to have a box close to where they're living. And to that end, will all of the age-restricted units, will they be in one building? Will they be spread out throughout the complex?
Yeah, I envision them being in one building, and I say that just because I think the construction techniques to build those are going to be very similar to each other, but very different than what some of the other like units would be. So I'd expect you'd want to hire like a contractor who specializes in that kind of work, which makes me think probably one building.
Okay. Yeah, and perhaps, and I understand that you know everything costs money, but if they had a little bit of storage and a meeting room, you know, where everybody can gather. And I think the gym, you know, we've all seen the large hotels with the small gyms. I don't think that a huge gym is necessary, but, you know, a small gym where everyone can get together and exercise and things of that nature, I think would be great.
Yeah, I think you'll definitely see one of those catered specifically to the residents here. And then what I was wondering about out loud was about if there's a market for a smaller community gym that even if you don't live here, you could go to on site. So within the units themselves, there'll definitely be amenities like a gym for sure within the apartment buildings.
And I know, as you mentioned, the market is not very strong for the old IBM pads, but if assisted living could be there, I think that'd be fabulous.
We need to get some investors. That's what we need, because that's going to cost different money. We need to put
I
our
would
heads
like
together.
to endorse the assisted living facility for consideration, as well as the one-level condos. I would also like to see a nice breakfast restaurant.
Me too, I'll meet
Yeah, these last few folks over here.
So I'd like to see, I like the fact that it is an inclusive environment, that you're focusing on including seniors, because it'd be easy to have these be high market rate units where you get as much money as you can. So I really appreciate that. From the inclusivity standpoint too, it would be great. There's a lot of, you're part of Men Arc. There are a lot of individuals with intellectual disabilities who are living at home because they don't have an opportunity to move out. So as part of that inclusivity, it'd be great if there was an opportunity for some of those, I know families in Littleton who have kids at home that don't have somewhere for them to go to live independently. And when you talk about some of the features that you mentioned for safety, those are things that we're already doing for the IDD community. So it's very easy to integrate those things. There's a lot of overlap between seniors and those with intellectual disabilities. So I'd be happy to talk to you about some of the ways that you could make these units safer using technology.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Wow, what a bunch of fabulous ideas, great input. Two folks in the back, would you like to say anything?
No, this is actually fantastic, so thank you for putting this on. But I just wanted to speak to the Lipoli companies in general, because we're blessed the fact that you're actually here, because if think about if that land was purchased by, I don't know, a bank or whatever, an investment firm that's out in California, this wouldn't be taking place and we wouldn't have any control at all. So I truly appreciate you coming out and sharing this with us. Thank you.
So I'm going to advocate for the Wilson Aquatic Center. And a Ferris wheel. And I do think the assisted living is important, missing piece in town. I've heard a lot of people also mention that they're really looking for condos rather than apartments. I really strongly suggest people talk to their financial people about this, because I think if you're selling your house and buying a condo, you're not really saving as much money as you think you are. So just do your research before you, I know we have the culture of home ownership in this country that doesn't necessarily exist elsewhere. Personally, I'm not ready to move to an apartment either, but I can see the advantages of these going forward. If you sell your house for what's it, $675, and you have your mortgage paid off, that's almost 20 years of rent. And you're not paying property taxes anymore. So just your property taxes and your condo fees are going to eat so much of that. So I understand it's a mental thing for people to get around, and I'm not ready to move into apartments, so I feel like I'm kind of disingenuous saying this, but really I'd strongly encourage people to sit down and think about it a little stronger.
What about the smell?
Right, somebody in their 50s is different than somebody in their 90s. Right.
Yes.
Main things.
So, do we have a parting comment?
I read the Wall Street Journal, been reading it for 30 years, and I just want to second what he said. I know there's a very strong sentiment. I have it too. We own the house we live in. We still owe 250 grand on it. But the benefit of owning relative to renting is much larger in our heads than it is in our bank accounts. There's a lot of hidden costs to owning a house. What it amounts to is forced saving. So as homeowners, we do that forced saving, and we come out ahead, and we look at that and we think, oh, I really came out ahead, but it isn't as good as you think it is. So he's right. Renting is more attractive than you think, especially after you've sold your last house.
I just sold my house to my niece, and I'm looking for affordable rental because I think it makes more sense at this age.
Thank you, everyone, and yeah, final words.
So many people have been talking about the financial aspect of it, and we always talk about the downsizing, meaning moving, and where do I sell my stuff or where do I store my stuff. How many people here would be interested if we were to get a speaker that could talk about the financial pieces of ownership versus rental?
to have another kind of thing like this that would be that kind of topic. Get an expert for it. I'm asking on behalf of EHS.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Show of hands?
Can we have a show of hands, please? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. So I would like to thank each of you for being here today to tell us what your thinking is, and hopefully we can make some of these changes and look at some of these ideas that you all have brought forward. As Rick had mentioned earlier, throughout the process of this King Street Commons getting developed, they are going to be coming to the planning board, so please feel free to come to those meetings, typically first Thursday of the month. So I know I sound like a broken record, but you can see how valuable your input is now and in the future. So thank you very much. I would also like to thank our two guest speakers, Maritza and Rick, for being here today to offer their insights and expertise, and to Kim for being a partner on this and raising it as an important topic for us to discuss. And did you want to say anything in closing?
I think this is amazing, right? We didn't know what we didn't know, and now we can take that all back and make good sense of it. So thank you for everybody.
Are you going to have this on a continual basis? Maybe you need a committee so people can give ongoing feedback.
Well, and someone from the planning board is here, our town planner, Maren Toohill. Did you want to comment on that?
Hi, Maren Toohill, town planner. I'll introduce brand new assistant town planner, Cooper Matthews. Any communications with Lupoli companies and with TEC, please feel free to send them through my office. Always happy to have the communication. As you want to provide input, please send it to me.
Welcome.
Poor thing.
I'm going to leave my cell phone number in my pocket.
Right. Okay, so one final parting comment from over here is, how about a community center for this particular development? So going back to the idea of an aquatic center. Okay, so couple of quick announcements before we depart. Rick did bring boards, and if we can put them up against the counter over there, perhaps everybody can take a look at them. If you'd like to stay, we have the room for another 15 minutes. But then we do need to scramble out of here starting at 3. Second, wanted to let everybody know this is an event for you to provide your input to us. However, if you feel like you would like to be able to talk to one of our many realtors here in town, feel free to leave your contact information on the sheet, and I will share that with the realtors. But aside from that, nobody should be contacting you. This was not a marketing event. Nobody's going to be bugging you for anything. But if you would like to be contacted, leave your information out there with Rob. And so with that, to your point, we would definitely like to be able to plan more of these types of events, and we'll continue to gauge the community temperature for having them, because this has been absolutely wonderful. So thank you all for coming, and have a great afternoon. And there's lots of cookies and pretzels left.